Hello, and welcome to Archive Dive. I'm Maria Lockwood, a reporter with the Superior Telegram. Each month, we dip into files on historic events, people, and places in Superior and Douglas County with local historians. Barker's Island is a focal point for celebrations, boating, and recreation in the city of Superior. The man-made island, created in the 1890s out of dredged material, is a popular spot. But there was a time when it nearly disappeared. Why was it built? What brought Barker's Island back? How has it been used over the years? And who was Captain Barker, the man it was named after? Helping us dive into the story today is local historian Teddy Moronic. Hi, Teddy.
Hi, Maria.
Thanks for joining us.
Oh, I'm glad to be back.
So let's go back in time. Why did they start putting dredged material here to make an island?
Well, it's because of the ports, and as the years went by, bigger and bigger ships were coming in. So the channel that they would go through in the harbor needed to be deepened. That's what brought Barker here to Superior, is that there was so much dredging work being done on the harbor.
So that was his specialty?
Right. He had worked on the Erie Canal. I found that interesting. His father had been a contractor for the Erie Canal, and then his son went to work with him, and he had worked there for 10 years. So he had a lot of experience, doing this. And he was sort of lured to Superior by General John Henry Hammond and the Land and River Improvement Company. They wanted him to come here. They knew he could do the job, and they knew what they needed done.
Where did he dredge? Where did he pull the material up from?
My gosh, he dredged all over the place, Eloise Bay, Superior Bay. But the main work was done on the shipping channel that went in front of where Barker's Island is. It's not that far from where Barker's Island is right now. So that had to be deepened. The federal government had put out guidelines about how deep and how wide these had to be. So I think Superior got quite a bit of money from the feds to do this. And so Barker was hired. And I think he decided where the dredging material was going to go.
Oh, the city council didn't say, put it here. He just said, hey, this is close. Let's do it.
No, Captain Barker found the cheapest place to deposit it, because you had to think about where it was going to go. If you had to take it far out into the lake to dispose of it there, it would cost him money in employees and fuel and use of his boats to take it out there. He was anti loading it on trains and taking it somewhere. Don't ask me why, but that was one of his.
Is that something that they would do back then?
I guess they would. And so the easiest place to dump it was right in the bay there, and just happened to be in front of Martin Pattison's house, but that had nothing to do with it, really and truly.
Did they get along?
You read a lot of different stories, but I think they did in a way. He did it there because it was very convenient. It would save everybody money if he could just dump the dredging materials there. I've heard that he did it because Pattison would raise the price of lumber every time Captain Barker needed lumber for something. But I think that's just a local, legend. He dumped it there because it was very convenient for him to dump it there.
Because he was pulling it out from just a little
Not far
down.
away, yeah. Okay. So it saved everybody money.
How deep did the channel have to go down?
Oh, I can't remember. You would ask me a question I cannot remember.
But all of that material
had to go
somewhere, and it all got piled up. And how big of an island did it eventually make? How big is Barker's Island?
I think it's almost 7 acres, isn't it? 6.74 or something like that. So it's almost 7 acres. I think they added on once. Well, they had to add on a couple times because it was disappearing.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Okay. And did it always have the deeper part between it and the shore? Like we have the bridge that goes across there?
Yeah, I'm not sure how much work they did.
Was it ever like an isthmus instead of?
Well, when it was first put there, there was no way to get there.
Oh, so just this.
It was just a pile of dredgings there, right in the harbor. And they built, the railroad built a viaduct over the railroad tracks that gave people access to the island. It was made out of wood, and you had stairs that went up it and then over. And people complained because if you wanted to take your kids there, it was very hard for them on the steps to walk up. Or if you had a baby carriage, you couldn't really get up there. And it was very popular when it was first developed.
Okay.
Because people didn't have access to good roads. They didn't have automobiles, very many automobiles in Superior at that time, so this was the place where you went on weekends.
Sort of like a park, only right on
Right,
the water.
and you could, take the streetcars down to a certain point and then walk the rest of the way,
Okay.
and that was their place where people had picnics and they went swimming for a
And it
while.
was undeveloped at that point, right?
Undeveloped, nothing really there. But it was a place where people could go. I think they did put lifeguards down there at one time because there
Okay.
were so many people swimming down there, but that was one of the things that happened to it too. They said that the use of cars, the use of automobiles was what ended that first wave of use of Barker's
Okay.
Island. But in reality, what it was is that Superior was dumping its sewage into the bay.
Oh, and people couldn't
Mm.
swim safely anymore,
Right,
right?
and at that time, Superior stormwater drains and sewage drains were together. So
Oh.
everything was going into the bay, and I read one story that referred to it as the brown waters of the Bay of Lake Superior.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so Superior didn't have a sewage treatment plant until 1958.
Okay, so when did people stop using it? When did it start eroding away because no one was
In the
using it?
40s,
In
in
the
the 40s, yeah, and I think, that's when they decided it was gonna be like a bird sanctuary, although I don't know if those birds would wanna be down there by that water. I'm not sure, and
Okay, so
there
there was talk
was
of turning it into a bird
Yep,
sanctuary.
and it was for
Plovers, yep,
Yep,
the baby
mhm,
plovers.
and so they were there that was in the 40s,
Okay.
and by that time, they had realized that you could not swim down there anymore
Mhm.
because of the water. So and it was kind of eroding away too.
Okay, so what changed?
Well, Mayor Hagan,
Okay.
the first Mayor Hagan,
Mhm.
he looked at it and thought, "Well, we can make something of this." And so I think they added more dredge material to it. I don't know if it was in the 40s or the 50s. And
Okay.
then there were plans for giving access to it. That was the big thing. Like, how do you get there? We
Mhm.
think, well, it's easy now. There's, these really nice roads that go down there, but
Right.
that wasn't the case back then. So you had to have access so people could get down there and do what they wanted to do,
Mhm.
picnic or maybe swim by then. But, that's what happened. He made it his priority, or one of the things he did while he was in office. He wanted to look into developing the island.
Okay. Is that when the bridge came in?
I think they started that in like 58.
Okay.
The railroad owned it. They owned the
Barker's
island,
Island?
yeah. I was surprised to find that out. I think did they give it to the city in the 1970s?
Why did the railroad own it?
I don't know.
If it was dredged material from the bay,
I don't know.
did they have trains that went there?
No. But the railroad lines ran right past it.
Okay.
So I don't know if they considered it part of what they owned.
But they eventually gave it to
Yeah,
the city.
mhm. And then really when the meteor showed up there in 1972, that
Okay.
was when the serious business of redeveloping Barker's Island started.
Okay. So they brought the meteor in and said, we're going to put it on Barker's
Right,
Island, which is not developed yet, but
right.
we'll get to that.
And then they got money to develop a marina.
Okay. Was that the 70s?
I think that's when they started, and there was a referendum about the whole, what are we gonna do down at Barker's Island, that the people in Superior overwhelmingly supported. It was the marina, the hotel complex, and all of that.
Okay.
So they started the development, and they got money from a lot of sources to do these things, not only the federal government, but state government, and then special interest groups and that supported, development of this in a conscientious way, that
Mhm.
you're thinking about the environment too. So it was the meteor that really started it.
Okay. The meteor was not built here, was it?
The meteor was built here.
The meteor was built
It
here in
was
Superior,
was
and it
the
was brought back
Mhm.
home when it was decommissioned?
Well, I don't know if it was just sailing around, and it was the Frank Rockefeller, that was its original name.
It was the Frank
Yeah,
Rockefeller.
it's the only one left in the
Okay.
world.
And there was a concentrated effort by folks here in Superior to bring it back home?
Right. Mhm. It is a great tourist attraction, and I think in the '80s, maybe the '90s, they also had this effort to bring in one of the boats that was built at local shipyards during
Mhm.
World War II, but I am really sad that that didn't happen. I think that would have been a great addition to the island, but they had it. I don't know, do they still have the dredge down there? At one time, they had a dredge down there.
They did at one point,
Yeah, but
have
I
it.
don't think it have it anymore, yeah, and then they started setting up those little shops, retail shops. That went on for a while, but not really very successful.
Okay.
And what else did they have down there? And then they had a restaurant at one time.
I remember that.
Yeah,
They
the
served
boathouse. Yeah,
fish, and you
yeah.
could bring them your fish, and they would serve it to you.
And that
That was not kosher. That was not allowed by law, so they had to stop doing that.
but they did fairly well, but that was just right before the crash in 2008,
Oh, yep.
yeah, in fact, the gold finds, I think they had put about $3 million into developing a dock for the Vista fleet. They had been here once. I don't know if they'd pulled out again, but they did a lot. They put a lot of money into it for harbor tours.
Okay.
And it didn't last very long, like 3, 4 years or something like that. And I think it had to do with the economic downturn out at that
Okay.
time too.
So when did the Vista was that in the early 2000s that they put it there?
It was probably about
boathouse?
2004, something
Okay.
like that.
So they came in and they got it going, and then there was an economic downturn.
Well, I've heard this too. And somebody, I think at the time when this was happening, said to me, well, you can get people to cross the bridge to go to Duluth, but you can't get people from Duluth to come to Superior.
Oh.
That might have been part of the problem. And they, of course, had the same thing over there. I mean, you could take harbor tours from the deck. So, but it's interesting place.
It is, and there's people who live on the end of the island now
Right,
too. There's a whole
right.
development there.
Right. I've been spending a little more time down there now since we decided to get a historical marker for the Fitzgerald, which will be placed on the island. And when you live here, you take it for granted.
Right.
And you go down there and you think, this is really a nice place. I wouldn't mind living down here, and just the whole atmosphere of what was happening in Superior when it was decided that they had to start dredging so that they could bring bigger boats into the harbor. Business was booming. And I think of all these interesting people here at the same time, Martin Pattison, and then there's Captain Barker, who was a very interesting man who was fixated. I think this was his whole life was dredging.
Okay.
I mean, that's all he did. That's all he did. And
now he dredged before, and then did he stay in Superior? Was that his last dredging job, or did he move on from there?
Yeah, he started the harbor dredging for the channel in 1896.
Okay.
And it was a 10-year project. And he died in 1901.
Oh.
He was fairly young too. He was in his 50s. He had a heart attack, but he's a very intense person, I think.
Oh. How many boats did they use? How many dredges did they have?
Oh, he had a whole fleet of them. He eventually they were sold to a Duluth dredging company after he died, but he had a whole fleet, and he had, of course, barges to haul the material out to the middle of the lake, or in front of Martin Pattison's house, one or the other.
Right.
But he built a house at the same time that Pattison did. Pattison built Fairlawn.
Right.
Apparently, business was good for Charles Barker because he built a house on John Avenue, which still stands, which certainly is not as lavish as Fairlawn, but it's a substantial house. And in fact, one of the chandeliers that was in the Barker house is now in Fairlawn.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. So
And I just found this out the other day. I didn't know this. It was designed by Earl Barber, who did the post office in Superior and Hammond Avenue Presbyterian Church. So he was a fairly, well-known architect that Barker hired to build his house. And the house was called Rosewind.
Rosewind.
Because it was a wedding gift for his wife, whose name was Rose.
And did she outlive her husband?
Yes,
then?
by many years, yeah. So,
But the dredging continued even after
yeah.
Captain Barker passed.
Yeah.
Do you know who took over the operations?
Well, his business was sold to a Duluth company. It was Duluth Dredging or something like that. And they probably fulfilled his contract for that.
But at that point, they'd already made Barker's Island, and it was already starting to take shape.
Yep. But I don't think they had any plans in the beginning, when all that dredging was piled there. And nothing really grew on it because all it was it's really a sandbar is what it is.
Okay. So how did the trees and the grass come about?
That had to be later on, after probably once they started developing the marina and everything else down there. What they used it for mostly in the early years was launching fireworks. That's where Superior's fireworks celebration on the 4th of July always took place down at Barker's Island.
Really?
Yeah.
I suppose they didn't have to worry about starting a fire.
Right. Yeah. And you're surrounded by water. So that was what it was used for mainly in the beginning, because it really wasn't until the 70s I mean, I never even thought about it when I was growing up. I thought, who'd want to go down there, really? I mean, it was just, now it's beautiful.
Mhm.
And I think I read that it's the largest full maintenance marina on the Great Lakes.
Wow.
Not sure. I read that somewhere. I hope it's true.
It is a very large marina
I know,
down
and
there.
they do take care of the boats and everything
Mhm.
down there. So good luck to those people for their, what do they get, about 3 days of sailing in the summer with the
Well
weather? No, I know they have more than that, but it's really nice. I mean, I guess I just didn't realize because I don't spend a lot of time down there being,
Mhm.
lived in Superior. Well, okay, you go down there once, whatever, but I don't really spend a lot of time down there.
Mhm.
But it has a great walking path and
It does. There's foxes who live there. I know
yeah,
our photographer, Jed Carlson, has gone there to catch pictures of
I
foxes.
know.
There's deer. I mean, there is some
I
wildlife going on
know.
down there.
It's really a great place and it doesn't even seem part of the city when you're down there.
Mhm.
It really is an island. Even though it's that close to shore,
Yep.
but it really does feel so separate from everything.
It does. I know that sometimes UW also go and bring kayak groups out around the
Mhm.
island. I've done that. And it's just so neat to go all the way around it.
Yeah, that you think that you can live in a city and then that wilderness it's sort of wilderness, not so much anymore, but at one time it was, but and a great view of all the boats coming through, and
Mhm.
I think that's why I'd like to live down there is to watch all that going through.
So, in hindsight, it seems like Captain Barker picked a very good spot to put the dredging
I
materials.
think he did, and that people appreciated it in the long run. Maybe not Martin Pattison, but I don't see why that would have been a problem even at that time
Mhm.
because it's just the bay. I mean, he's not, you're not living on London Road or anything there, but really, it's the bay. It's not the lake. It's
Right.
the bay. And I don't see why that would have bothered him since he could go up in his tower in Fairlawn and look out and
Mhm.
have a magnificent view of the lake.
Definitely.
Yeah, I just think it's an urban legend.
That they didn't get along.
They didn't get along. They
What was
didn't.
his first name, Captain Barker?
Charles.
Charles.
Yeah. And he and his wife are buried in Duluth, which I find interesting. And I don't know if maybe she had some connection to Duluth,
Maybe.
but they're buried in the cemetery in Duluth, not in Superior. So he's an interesting guy.
Well, next time folks are down at Barker's Island,
Yes.
just take a minute and think that all of that never would have happened.
I know when you
If
think about it.
it hadn't been for the need to dredge and somebody saying, "Hey, this is a cheap way to do it."
I just wonder how you can keep it from floating away or just washing away. That's
The
what,
dredging.
yeah, because it's just sand.
Did they put any pilings or anything underneath it
I
to help
don't think so. He just
collect it up?
dumped it.
Huh.
I don't know.
That's a lot of material if you figure.
Oh, yeah, but he took out tons and tons and
Mhm.
tons. Just you can't even imagine how much that would be to make that channel
Mhm.
viable for those big ships. I don't know how often they go out there and do it. They must have to do it all the time. Once in a while I'll see dredges out there like in Eloise Bay or something, but
I wonder where they put the material now.
I don't know.
Watch for any islands being built up, shall we?
I think it would be hard to build an island in Lake Superior, don't you? That it wouldn't stay where it was
Mhm.
put. Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Teddy.
You're welcome.
And thank you for listening to Archive Dive. New episodes are available monthly at superiortelegram.com or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have a topic you'd like us to explore, email me at mlockwood@superiortelegram.com. But before we go, we would like to mention that for the second year in a row, Archive Dive was recognized with the First Place Award for Best Overall Audio Storytelling in the state by the Wisconsin Newspaper Association. We couldn't have done it without you, the listeners. Thank you.